My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. Good evening and welcome to Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor Furman. In 1944, author W. Somerset Maugham published his novel, The Razor's Edge. His title was taken from the Katha-Upanishad, one of the great Hindu scriptures, and specifically from the quote, "The sharp edge of a razor is difficult to pass over. Thus the wise say the path to salvation is hard." Our guest this evening, Cara Bradley, lived her own version of this thought and found insight and inspiration that transformed her life and the lives of those that she shared her insights with. Cara is a passionate teacher of yoga, meditation, and fitness who has been in the trenches of personal transformation as a mental strength coach for more than 3 decades at her Verge Yoga Center, retreats, corporate training sessions, and with teams such as Villanova University and Penn State. Her website is carabradley.net, and she joins us this evening to share her new book, On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. Good evening, Cara, and welcome.
Good evening, Victor. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I have to start out by mentioning that there are several wonderful endorsements on the covers of On the Verge, but the one on the front cover really caught my eye. The quote reads, "A must-read for anyone who is passionate about peak performance at home, work, and at play." Now, that quote comes from a gentleman by the name of Jay Wright, and he's the coach of the just-crowned men's national basketball champion Villanova Wildcats. First of all, congratulations on your home state team's victory, and the timing of their championship and your book's publication is just amazing.
I have to tell you, I'm still in shock about it all because, not only did I work with the team, I didn't work with these particular players, but I have worked with the team in over the past decade a bunch of times. But that on Monday morning in the Philadelphia Inquirer, the headline was on the front page, Villanova on the Verge.
That's wonderful. That's so good. That's just great. So you must be very proud of your association with both the team and the endorsement from the coach on your book is just amazing.
Yes, I'm really proud. They're a top-notch school, top-notch program, just down the street from us. So this area is just pandemonium right now, I could tell you.
I bet. And that's their first championship in, 35 years?
1985, right. They won the national championship, but I work with the football team, and the football team, we won a national championship in 2009.
Wonderful.
So it's a very, very established, wonderful program.
Well, let's talk about early years and away from Pennsylvania and back to the wonderful town of Brooklyn, New York, because I learned from the first chapter of On the Verge that we are fellow native Brooklynites. Please share a little bit about your formative years and how they shaped your life into young adulthood.
Well, I'll tell you, I loved growing up in Brooklyn, Italian section, right around Coney Island. And the wonderful thing about my childhood in Brooklyn was that we lived on West 13th Street, and my nonna, my grandmother, lived on West 13th Street, and my other grandparents lived on West 12th Street. So I just thought that everybody lived like that you had grandparents over for dinner every night, or you went to their house.
Yeah, that's a wonderful time, and the fact that you have proximity of family and Italians and other groups in Brooklyn and New York City are so closely knit that the family is like a continuation of everybody all the time, and not just a visit here and a visit there.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
And how did that lead to some of the stuff that happened to you as a young adult?
Well, I think that growing up in an Italian family with grandmothers around me, and I was really involved in life all the time. Italians, love life. And we love to eat, smell, drink, play, touch each other, touch each other's faces. And I think for my whole life, I just grew up a very sensory person. I know that the chapter 1 is called Let Me Do. I was an independent, stubborn little Italian girl who just wanted to do and feel and taste and smell everything myself. Really, really affected by how I experienced life. And that really carried over into the rest of my life.
Now, also, you're a former pro skater and also roller derby champion. What was that like?
Well, not roller derby, but roller blade.
Oh, roller blade. I'm sorry.
Right, inline skates. I was a figure skater, professional figure skater, and then living in New York City, strapped on a pair of roller blades and started to perform for Team Rollerblade during the heyday when it was really an incredible trend and popular sport, and performed all over the world on skates.
Wonderful. Now, you were an athlete in college, and you said you had a great epiphany about yourself and your approach to life at your final college track race. It had to do with the concept of personal best. What was that about?
So I was an average college runner, and I had decided I was going to transfer schools. So I had my final race as a sophomore, as a 19-year-old, and I was mediocre at best and went off on my own before that final race and started to chant to myself something I'd never done, personal best, personal best. What I didn't realize I was doing was actually chanting a mantra. I was settling my mind. I was settling all the nerves and the doubts so that when I stepped onto the starting line, I had absolutely no fear. I didn't feel like I was going to throw up. I felt calm and clear. And that track race really changed my life because I ended up shaving 6 seconds off my personal best. And while I was excited about all of a sudden tapping into my strength, I was equally, if not more so, disappointed that I'd never been able to access that strength before. And so that became my search. What happened to me? Why did time stand still? Where did my doubt and fear go? How did I access my strength? And how do I do it again and again? And that set me off on my journey.
Now, do you remember, obviously you do remember, but what was that experience like when you had that epiphany? What went through your mind when you had that epiphany?
Well, during the race, I had absolutely no thoughts. But right after the race, I thought there's got to be a practice, a discipline, a lineage, a book, something that I can do to experience that again. And so I did everything from bungee jumping to walking on hot coals. I read every self-help book out there. I studied the religions. And I really, really kept searching and searching until I could understand what happened to me on the track.
Absolutely. You know, you called yourself a human potential junkie, and I know there were a lot of us in the 80s and 90s who were members of the human potential movement. Why a junkie, though?
Oh, because I feel like, why are we here? You know, this is our one shot at this incredible human experience. I want to be able to tap into all of my intelligences, not just in my mind. So here comes the Italian experiencer again, not just in my mind. What about my physical intelligence? What about my emotional intelligence? I want to tap into it all. So that's kind of where I say I'm a junkie, because I just love it. It excites me, and I love to share it with other people as well.
My dear friend, late friend, Debbie Ford used to refer to people like us as light chasers, that we were always looking for something new, some way of developing ourselves, making our lives better, making the world better. Do you feel that you were a light chaser also?
I do. But in many ways, I feel like I could say at this point, I'm a light being. Okay. I've kind of, at this point in my life, recognized that there's nowhere to go, and it's all right here. And for every single one of us, it's in this next breath, and it could happen that simply without even trying.
So that leads us to the concept of your book, On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. What is The Verge?
So the Verge, as I use it, really represents this moment. And when we're able to show up fully, open and available in this moment, we start to experience life fully. We start to experience vividness, our senses light up. And so being on the verge is a way of recognizing that in this very moment, I can just show up and be here and experience being awake and fully alive.
Now, where did this idea, the concept of the Verge, you mentioned in your book about the Amazon River and your husband being near the Amazon River. Tell us about that, please. Right.
So the Amazon, in the Amazon, where two tributaries meet, there is a plot of land right there in the Amazon basin where in this one spot, animals, plant life thrive. Something happens in this one little spot where life is more diverse, life is more more vivid. And so what happens is that on the verge in the Amazon is where life comes alive, and that's where I got the metaphor.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that's that burgeoning place, that place that the potential exists and it's ready to happen.
You got it.
Wonderful. And what does it mean to you to live on the verge?
So to live on the verge is to show up for life right here, right now, and to shift beyond doing into being, and to shift beyond thinking into experiencing life fully. And that's what living on the verge is. And it's available to every single one of us in any moment.
That's just beautiful. And we're speaking with Cara Bradley. Her new book is called On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. And we'll be back with Cara and more of her techniques after these brief messages on Destination Unlimited on OMTimes FM.
Come on, smile. Oh, honey, he's still not smiling.
Maybe he's not a smiler.
Yeah, maybe he's just not a happy baby.
Maybe he's just being a boy.
Or maybe he's teething.
Maybe it's just a phase.
Maybe he has autism, and we can definitely do something to help.
Maybe is all you need to find out more about autism. No big, joyful smiles by 6 months is one early sign. Learn the others at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Buffett. How would you like to meet an endangered manatee? You can by joining Save the Manatee Club's Adopt the Manatee program. You can't take them home, but you can get to know your new manatee friend through the photo, biography, and information the club sends to you. And you can read updates on your manatee in the club newsletter. More importantly, your contribution goes to programs that are working to save manatees from extinction. It's easy to help. Call 1-800-432-JOIN.
Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour.
And we are back on Destination Unlimited. Our guest this evening, Cara Bradley, author of On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. So, Cara, just before the break, we were talking about living on the verge. Just sort of reinforce that idea for our listeners, please.
So living on the verge is not about doing more, but about being more. It's not about achieving more. It's about experiencing more. And it's not about being somebody different, as I believe there's no better version of you. So we live on the verge when we can show up, open, available to this very experience called life. And in that moment, when we show up, We access our potential. We experience our senses fully, and everything comes alive in high definition.
Now, you say in order to get to get to the verge, rather, we have to get beyond the busy mind. What is the busy mind, and how do we get past it?
So we all have busy minds. In this day and age, we are carrying around more mental stuff than we know what to do with. And so if we just I use the phrase busy mind to just represent all of the contents that we hold in our mind. So it's not to say thinking is a bad thing. It's just that we carry around a lot with us. And when we experience life through the lens of our busy mind, it mutes our experience. So for instance, we could be drinking that first cup of coffee in the morning, but because we're thinking about the email we need to send, we don't fully experience, smell, taste, enjoy that cup of coffee. When we can settle our busy mind, when we have the ability to just pause, we can then just rest in this moment and smell, taste, experience the coffee fully. And so that's some of the ideas that I talk about in the book.
Wake up and smell the roses, huh?
Exactly.
I know that the concept that you're discussing has also been referred to as mindfulness, and many of the Buddhist practices involve mindfulness techniques. Having attended many retreats at a Zen monastery in upstate New York, one of the ones that stands out in my mind is having the mindful meal, in which you eat in total silence, which I don't think any families that we grew up with in Brooklyn would ever have done, because that would be totally the opposite of what we experienced as children. But you sit there quietly, you eat in a very defined fashion, where you take your spoon, for example, if you have a bowl of soup, and you insert the spoon into the bowl and lift the spoon up, bring it to your mouth, taste it, savor it, bring the spoon back down, and do this sort of in a cyclical way. And that way, your mind is totally centered and focused on the meal that you're having at that point. What are the benefits of doing stuff like that?
Oh, that's great. I love your description. Anything having to do with food, Victor, I love. So,
okay. You and I come from Brooklyn. I know that.
So mindfulness is a way of training our mind, just as you said. We're training our mind to pay attention on purpose, to smell the soup, to notice the spoon, to taste the soup. So it's not something to achieve. And I think a lot of people get really stuck in, I can't stop my mind from thinking. That's not going to happen. And that's actually not what mindfulness is about. Mindfulness, as you said, is a way of noticing. So we're getting better at noticing how we're eating when we're eating mindfully. We're getting better at noticing how we're walking when we do mindfulness walking. So mindfulness, again, and that's where my role as a mental strength coach comes into play, because mindfulness training is like training a bicep muscle. You just doing it over and over and over again until you get more skilled at paying attention on purpose.
I remember reading about neuroelasticity, and it said that when you work with the brain or with the mind, each time you reinforce a concept or idea, it's just like building up a muscle.
Exactly. In fact, the catchphrase is neurons that fire together wire together.
I like that a lot.
Right. And the studies show that, mindfulness training can change the way that our brain operates. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. I think about all of my friends and family members and growing up as kids, and the bottles of Pepto-Bismol and antacids and other and people today taking all types of antacids because they have acid reflux, and that if people ate mindfully and got all those strange and extraneous thoughts out, not only would they help to eliminate some of the gastric and digestive problems, but also in mindful eating they find that they fill up faster, eat less, and actually are in better physical condition.
Yes, that's for sure. In fact, one of the things that I really believe is that we do everything better when we can just show up in this moment. Everything we do better. And yes, we can recognize fullness. We can recognize tastes. We can recognize what we like and don't like, or what to say and what not to say. So by just slowing down, pausing, and noticing what we're experiencing in this moment, we're able to access so many more of our faculties. And that's the beauty. And you can call it mindfulness. You can call it just pausing. I like to call it just noticing, because I don't like, the way that I teach is to really give people very easy to understand language that doesn't get people tripped up, because my interest is in really having people understand and implement these practices.
Absolutely. And I remember personal share in my late 30s. This would have been in the 1980s, late 1980s. I remember having an issue with my back, and a dear friend of mine suggested I start taking yoga classes. And I found a wonderful yoga teacher in Brooklyn, actually, in FDR High School, which you may remember or know about from your childhood, and started taking at the Adult Education Center these yoga classes, and started doing meditation in those classes. And I noticed within about a week of doing that, that I walked outside one night and I started seeing, feeling, and experiencing things that I believe I did as a child but had put away because of the busyness and, like you said, having the busy mind and not being mindful. And it absolutely transformed my life at that point.
Wow. That's incredible. It's that easy. It can really shift us that easily. If we... Yes.
I'm sorry. No, please go ahead.
What I was going to add just about using a practice like a yoga practice or a meditation practice, these practices, first I'm just going to pause for a moment and just tell you, you may appreciate this, that I often say being a yoga teacher is kind of like being a priest. I was brought up Catholic. People see me on the street and they say, "Oh my gosh, it's been 3 months since my last yoga class."
Oh, that is funny.
And I'll just say, you know what? Don't worry about it. Couple of up dogs, couple of down dogs, you're good.
Do they say, "Bless me, teacher, for I have sinned"? Do they say that to you?
Almost.
That's funny.
But honestly, I never want people to feel badly that they're not in yoga class, because we can practice this stuff anywhere. What yoga allows us to do, if it's a slow, mindfully based yoga class where you're not doing too many trippy things, but when it's slow enough, it allows you to recognize how you're living. As I often say in class, the way you practice yoga is the way you're living your life. So use your yoga practice as a laboratory to get to know when you get frustrated, when you judge, when you skip out, when you quit, or when you push too hard. We actually become much more familiar with ourselves by just moving our bodies in a few different positions than we can do in the busyness and the craziness of our daily lives.
I remember that. I remember in the first couple of yoga classes, and the teacher was a very gentle teacher, and I just remember that when she would say, "Do this type of stretch," whatever the position or the asana was at the time, and she would say, "Do it until you feel comfortable, but don't overextend. Listen to your body and listen to your body." And that was a very valuable lesson about listening to one's body.
Absolutely. But, I heard that for about 10 years, and I never listened to my body. When I first started practicing yoga, I was all about advanced, variation, fancy, but as we get older, our body will start to scream at us. But the practice of yoga, if we're curious students, can help us to wake up to when we're not listening. And then we take that out into our lives, and we recognize when we're not listening to all of the incredible information that is emerging from our physical body 24/7.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I guess in those early years of your learning yoga and becoming an instructor, you were still looking for the personal best.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And the only competition is not competition when it comes to yoga. It's just working to quiet that mind and listen to all of the aspects of everything that you're processing when you're in that moment, in that perfect moment of stretching and releasing and breathing, very importantly breathing, and coming in tune with oneself. Now, you talk about the natural state in your book. Mm-hmm. How do you define the natural state?
Well, the natural state is, boy, did I have a challenge writing this part of the book, because it is ultimately indescribable. Mm. And yet it is the most ordinary feeling that every single one of us has felt. And we feel it every day. And so the natural state is what happens when our mind settles and we're not preoccupied in thinking. And we're able to just sit in the center of the moment, on the verge, right, in this very moment, and experience life in our full sensory experience with our heart open and our mind settled. And this natural state is where we shine.
Absolutely. I remember a line from an old Moody Blues song about feeling oneself in balance and knowing that that person was in balance at that point. That's the natural state you're talking about.
Right. Yes.
Wonderful. Our guest tonight, Cara Bradley, her new book, On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. Cara, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you.
Well, the book is available everywhere as of April 12th. That is our official launch date. And I am at Cara Bradley, and that's Cara Bradley.net. And online and all the social media. You know,
Cara's an entrepreneur. We're going to talk a little bit about that later in the show, about businesses, and I'm sure she supports local businesses. Right, Cara?
Absolutely.
And we'll be back with Cara Bradley on Destination Unlimited after these messages.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the Internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Are you in an interfaith relationship and thinking of getting married? For 18 years, Reverend Laurie Sue Brockway has been creating personalized, loving, and romantic ceremonies for couples of all faiths and cultural backgrounds. Reverend Laurie Sue's sensitivity to the needs of interfaith couples is reflected in the compassionate and inclusive way she addresses the concerns of parents and families. Reverend Laurie Sue is also the author of several best-selling books on interfaith weddings and wedding vows. Selected as one of the top interfaith officiants by New York Magazine, Reverend Laurie Sue serves couples in the New York metropolitan area and beyond. Find out more at her website, yourinterfaithwedding.com.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Welcome back to Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor Furman, and our guest tonight is Cara Bradley, author of the brand new book, On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. Cara, what does it mean in your terminology in the book to be fully awake and fully alive?
Well, I think it's just what happens when we allow ourselves to arrive in the center of our lives And the way it feels for me is that I experience life in high definition with this high voltage energy. That's the best way I can explain what it feels like to be awake and fully alive. Now, we have these moments all day long. And this is something that, I think it's the reason why I wrote the book, is because so many of us are out there searching. We're searching and buying and trying and thinking somebody else is going to give us the answer, when truly if we just let go, if we just relax our palms from the fist to the open palm and allow ourselves to just pause, we experience life as it should be experienced. It may not always be with ribbons and bows, but it is our life. It is reality. So awake and fully alive is a way of saying, we are here for this one life. We have this one incredible human full catastrophe experience. And why not show up for it? Why not arrive for it?
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I completely agree with what you're saying, but I have someone out there in listener land, and they're saying, something, I get up in the morning at 6 a.m., and I drag my butt out of bed, and I brush my teeth, and I take my shower, and I put on my clothes, and I go to a job which I really don't like, and I do it because I have to earn a living, and my relationship ain't so great, and whatever in my life. I have all these things happening in my life. How do you tell a person like that to become fully awake and fully alive?
So what I say is, for all of us, and especially for somebody who feels dulled or muted like that, and I am not a therapist, so I am speaking from my experience and the experience that I have discussed with students. If you can spend your day recognizing the small glimpses of brightness in life, and they are there. Sometimes it could be as easy as driving home and you're at a red light and you look up and you see the sunset. That is a moment of brilliant vividness of being alive, even if it only lasts for a second. If you can just recognize it, maybe even with just a nod, okay, here I am. Yes, this is life. When you see the flock of birds just swoop by you, or you notice the deer in your backyard, or the sun peeking through the window on the snow, those very ordinary moments is what it really means to be alive, is to be in the presence of these simple moments, is where we could start to cultivate our aliveness. So in many ways, it's like these small glimpses are like kindling wood, the small little pieces of wood that you continue to feed your fire. And if you can start to recognize these glimpses, it can be as easy as that smell of the first cup of coffee in the morning. It's almost like that reminder to yourself, I am still here. This is my life. I am still here.
Now, noticing the moment which we're talking about is one of the tools that you call Verge practices and strategies. Let's talk a little bit more about Verge practices and strategies. So you have notice the moment, which we just discussed. Then you have move my body. What's that about?
So these practices are really simple, by the way, everybody. Anybody can do them. They don't cost a dime. Move my body. If we can think of moving our body in rhythm every day, even for 10 minutes, moving your body in a rhythm, and it could be walking, running, rowing, swimming, knitting, gardening, washing dishes, right? We can all do something, but it's this rhythm. It's this very methodical rhythm that helps us to settle our busy mind, and it helps us to relax our nervous system. It can be as simple as moving your arms up and down 5 times with your breath. These are just little ways and practices that can help you shift from being entrenched or imprisoned in your thought, doubt, and fear to having a sense or even a second of relief from that intensity of thinking all the time.
And obviously, taking yoga classes or developing a yoga practice and pranayama, breathing exercises, are integral parts to Move My Body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect. It's so perfect to just breathe and move in unison. So whether it's a practice like a pranayama practice, which is a breathing technique, or a yoga practice or walking, any of those done with intention can do the trick.
You know, I used to have a favorite one of those. It was called Slappa My Heada with My Palma. And you know, I the epiphany, that moment where you said, I could have had that or could have done that. And I learned that eventually it does hurt the third eye, so I stopped doing it and transferred the energy elsewhere. And so speaking of which, another one of your practices is called Meet My Mind. Tell us about that.
So Meet My Mind is a way to synchronize your mind and body, which really means just to come into your mind and body fully so that they're not separate, to sit with your mind and body. Meet My Mind is simply a way of sitting still and being quiet and breathing and noticing what's happening. So it's a way of turning inward to become familiar with your mind, which is the essence of mindfulness meditation.
And it also is almost like the old biblical adage, know thyself.
Yes. Perfect.
True, that's right. And then you have a practice, a Verge practice called Notes to Self.
So Notes to Self I love because it's just a way of becoming familiar with how you're speaking to yourself and then just shifting that just slightly so that you're not whacking yourself on the side of the head all the time and judging yourself or beating yourself up, but actually starting to make friends with yourself a bit with notes of encouragement and ways to keep you moving forward. So a note to self could be something as easy as, may I be at ease right now? Or can I show up in this moment? Or am I really here? So it's just changing your inner dialogue. And it's not positive affirmations per se. It really, being from Brooklyn, we kind of just talk to ourselves like real deal. You know what I'm saying, Victor?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this is all like, it's not, woo-woo stuff for those of you that get a little nervous with some affirmation type stuff. It's really just very simple language.
I know my beloved carries around a yellow sticky pad, and she writes these notes out because she sometimes forgets things, and she has them stuck up all over our house.
I love it.
There's probably 7 or 8 million of these things around our house, and it's around her desk in particular. And that concept of notes to self is truly wonderful. One thing that I'd like to just expand upon a little bit that you were mentioning, I know this from my personal experience, and I'm sure others can identify with this. When I was younger and I faced a challenge, I used to catastrophize. I used to see in my mind's eye and imagination the worst possible situation with the worst possible outcome. And then when I actually lived through the moment, it turned out to be not so bad. And in actuality, most of the time it was fine. But we have this tendency to look for how things are going to fail. I think that might be part of human nature for many people. And it took me a long time to overcome it. But now when I catch myself having those negative thoughts, I say, wait a minute, is this me? Is this reality? Is it true? Or are there other alternatives? And I think that's something valuable to others.
Yeah, and that's great. And it really helped me to know this as well, Victor, that there is something ingrained in we are conditioned to go to the negative first. It's actually a survival mechanism called the negativity bias. So oftentimes when anything comes up, when we experience a new person or a new situation, immediately we're just conditioned to look at the negative. But if we can know that, and this is where watching ourselves by meeting our mind, by doing some of these practices, by noticing and becoming familiar with ourselves, we can catch ourselves before we go down that road. We can catch ourselves, wait a second, that's going to cause me a lot of drama. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that I'm going to go negative and I'm going to pause.
Absolutely. And for a couple of kids from ethnic families in Brooklyn to overcome that tendency, which was nature to us, is a wonderful thing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't go out of the house without a hat and a coat on in the middle of the summer.
You'll freeze to death. Wait, dear, Cara, you didn't eat enough. Eat more, right?
Exactly. But as we get to know our mind, we really set ourselves free. And that's what so many of these practices are about. And they're easy to do. We can all do them. I think that is what I want stamped on my head. We can do this.
Absolutely. Now you talk about being in sync. What's that about? So
being in sync is a way of just being in rhythm with life. So as I said before, it can be the way you feel when you're running or swimming or walking or knitting or cooking. There's this sense of rhythm. There's this sense of flow that happens. And it doesn't have to happen by chance. We can actually practice being synchronized, being aligned, feeling balanced. And that comes with a commitment to just practice something every day that helps us feel balanced and in rhythm and in alignment with life.
More of the Verge practices and strategies with our wonderful guest, Cara Bradley. After these messages, you're listening to Destination Unlimited on the OMTimes FM radio network.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is Save the Manatee Club with a manatee message. Speed zone signs are located in Florida waterways to protect manatees. An orange circle indicates a restricted area and may be designated as idle speed, where boats should go no faster than necessary to be steered, or slow speed, a minimum wake zone where boats should be level in the water and not on plane. A diamond with a cross indicates a no-entry zone. For more manatee protection tips, call Save the Manatee Club at 1-800-432-JOIN.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Imagine being forced to live outside with only a thin coat to protect you from the bitter cold. Desperate, you call out to your family, but they ignore you. All alone, you shiver and shake as frostbite sets in, and you slowly freeze to death. When it's cold, bring your cat or dog inside. Make sure other outside animals have adequate food, water, and shelter, and report neglect immediately. For more information, visit PETA.org or call 757-622-PETA.
And we're back on Destination Unlimited with our guest, Cara Bradley, author of the brand new book, On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. Cara, we're talking about what you call Verge practices and strategies. And my favorite of these, and I think yours also, is be kind. Tell our listeners how to be kind to themselves.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I came to this kicking and screaming because it took me a long time to be kind to myself. I think a lot of us feel this way. We just don't know how to be friendly towards ourselves. And be kind is a way of making friends with yourself by just invoking tenderness and humor. So one of my favorite practices that I'd love to share with you is this idea of having a love object. Are you ready for me here, Victor?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
And I learned this from my meditation teacher, Scott McBride. So a love object is someone or some pet in your life. So think of a small baby or a small child or a baby or a pet. Pets are even better because they can't talk back to you. So something that you love and cherish and have this uncomplicated, unconditional relationship with. And so what you do with this practice is you start to notice how you communicate with this pet or young child. And even if it's one of the past, even if they're no longer with you, you can sit and think about, how did I talk to my dog? Or how do I speak to my cat? And this is the way we can start to speak to ourselves, because we treat our pets much better than we treat ourselves. But by starting to watch your delightful, giggly, gooey, silly, playful way that you speak to your pet or your young child, and you start to then turn that and start to speak to yourself that way. I know it may sound absolutely far off, and it did for me for a while, but I have to tell you all out there, I'm like a hard-nosed Brooklyn girl. It changed my life.
Yeah. I so identify with you on that. I just know, and for folks who've grown up in the Midwest and the South and the West, people who grow up in urban areas and very dense neighborhoods like New York, like Brooklyn, and grew up in ethnic families, be it Italian families, Irish families, Jewish families, whatever it might be. Number one, a lot of us grew up in families where we were not given a lot of self-esteem. Where parents, especially parents who were first or second generation immigrants, were very critical. And not because they didn't love us or they didn't care. They wanted us to have better lives for ourselves than they had. And that a lot of that was done that way. And so you grow up with being told you're not good enough, or you have to work harder, or you're not successful, whatever it might be, not being mean-spirited, but trying to prompt you to be better. And you start developing these patterns in your mind that I'm not good enough, and what do I have to do to get love and acknowledged? And that turns into a lack of self-love and compassion. And paraphrasing, I believe it was the Dalai Lama who may have said that if we are compassionate to all, but not compassionate to ourselves, we've missed the boat or missed the message. And that's really, compassion, kindness is like charity. It starts at home. And we need to give to ourselves the same loving kindness and attention that we give others, and ultimately understand that we're worthy of that kindness and compassion.
Beautiful. Really beautiful. That was so well said. But it is so... it's so unfamiliar to us, and it was so unfamiliar to me. And so some of the things that I've learned to do is to put my hand on my heart and to actually say, there, sweetheart. There, sweetheart. It's so corny, like I said, for this tough girl to say that. But I say it now jokingly with a kind of a silly little smile. There, sweetheart. It's okay. You just dropped your phone again. There, sweetheart. Come on. Let's go. We can do this. We can do this. So it's this gentle, humorous, kind way of becoming friends with ourselves that really it amplifies all of our other practices in a way that we can only really understand when we start to do it.
Absolutely. And if you happen to see Cara or myself on your street talking to ourselves, please don't call the guys in the white coats. We don't need that. We're practicing Verge practices and strategies. So please don't call the guys in the white coats. So your next Verge practice and strategy is, I think, probably one of the most important. Let it go. Let it be.
Oh, yes. Let it go. Let it be. It's a reminder to not have to fix everything in your life, to not have to force and control, or to not flee things that are uncomfortable. So I have this just catchphrase of, am I forcing, fixing, or fleeing? And this to me came about from my yoga practice, because I remember being in this yoga pose, this big hip opener lizard pose, And I remember all of a sudden I woke up and I started to look at what the heck I was doing. I said, what are you doing? I was pushing my hips towards the floor. My face was squeezed and I wasn't breathing. And all of a sudden I saw the insanity. And then from there, I realized, in my yoga practice, I can start to learn that I'm doing this at work. I'm doing it at home. I'm fixing people. I'm forcing things to happen. I'm running away from what's uncomfortable. And so by just asking myself, can I let this go? Can I let this be? Can I be at ease? Can I rest? It's a way of starting to unclench the fists that we walk around with constantly. And it's really a learning. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But again, if you blanket it all with some loving kindness and you make friends with yourself while you're doing it, it's transformative.
I was one of Billy Joel's angry young men. I was very angry when I was a kid and a young adult. And it took this mindful practice that we're talking about to make me realize that anger was doing nothing except being detrimental to me. There's an old expression about anger and hatred. It's like taking poison and expecting it to affect the other person or waiting for the other person to die. And it's true. It's all of this tension and this anger. We have to learn to let it go and also be kind to ourselves and forgive ourselves for having the anger to begin with. Righteous anger is okay, but to hold on to it and dwell in it is so detrimental to us.
Yes.
Now, your final Verge practice and strategy is sort of a corollary to notice the moment. It's be aware. Right.
So this strategy, it's just a reminder again. It's a way to just have some of these tools in your pocket. The Be Aware strategy is based on 5 levels of awareness that I came up with. And so I'm going to go through them and just imagine this for a moment. The first level is just your busy mind. It's when we're walking through life completely oblivious, when we're actually not aware that we're not aware, right? So we drop the phone, we drop the keys, we fumble into the house, trip over something. We're just not aware that we're not aware. That's level 1. A lot of us are there a lot of the time, but most of us don't live there all the time, and we'd never survive, to be honest with you. Level 2 is when we start to wake up and we become aware when we're not aware. It's like, oh, here I am again. I'm about to drop my phone, or maybe I should put my bag down before I try to send the text message. We start to become aware when we're not aware. And this is what happens with our mindfulness practices, right? We start to recognize when we're not in the moment. Level 3 is when we start to be able to pause. Okay, I'm not aware. I'm noticing that I'm not aware. I am going to pause and take 5 deep breaths before I speak to my colleague about the email they sent. We start to be able to find the composure to pause before we slip up. And then the next level is when we start to glimpse those moments when we're aware. I was saying before, you glimpse the moment when you see the sunrise and you pause. You glimpse the moment and you're able to hang out and recognize and experience eating the delicious pasta with the tomato sauce, right? This is how we start to lengthen out these moments and start to feel alive. And then the last level is when we're fully aware, when we're able to hug our child and fully experience the hug, when we're able to run that last lap of the race and kick butt, right, and access potential. When, like our Villanova Wildcats, I'll just have to say it, when they're able to make a pass and then make a shot and dunk it and make the 3-pointer for the national championships. That's what living on the verge is.
Absolutely. And
yes.
you use the term shine as the result of waking up and showing up Obviously the Wildcats shined. Talk about shine, please.
So shining happens when you are right here, right now. And you can shine in so many ways. You can shine in the way you set the dinner table. You can shine in the way you greet the person that you're buying coffee from. You can shine in the way you show up for your children or listen to your parent. We shine when we show up, when we're right here in this moment, without thinking, imagining, worrying, doubting, fearing, all of that stuff. When we're able to shift beyond all that and just be available to live, we shine. We access intelligence. We access this brilliant awareness, the divine intelligence that's always flowing through us. And that's it. That is living on the verge.
That's wonderful. Now, how can these principles and ideas apply to those who want to start their own business?
Well, because we show up with what's available. We know what we've got. We're honest with ourselves. What are my resources? What are my capacities? Where do I need to lean on other people? And we take it one day at a time. We don't get too ahead of ourselves. We stay right with it and we lean in.
Wonderful advice from our guest, Cara Bradley, author of the book, On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. Cara, please tell our listeners one more time where they can find out more about your book and about you.
Well, you can find out about me on my website, www.carabradley.net, on social media, and the book will be available everywhere as of April 12th. Bookstores, online, anywhere you want.
Cara, thank you so much for being with us tonight and sharing this wonderful practice of yours that each and every one of our listeners can take one part of tomorrow and start applying to improve their lives.
Thank you so much, Victor. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on Destination Unlimited. This is Victor Furman. We'll see you again next week. Have a good night, everyone.